Hi, I'm Jacquin. I've made this video just to talk about phobias for a while, my idea and my understanding of how a phobia is developed and how you can eliminate a phobia. This is my explanation to my clients. It's very simple. Whether it's exactly accurate or not is beside the point. My point in explaining to my clients is just to say this is how it works, how we learn a phobia. There are, in my mind, two ways of actually developing or learning a phobia. One is a learnt behaviour. Let's say you've got your mother's afraid of wasps, and as a child, whenever a wasp is nearby, your mum goes into a sort of frantic, flapping her arms, anxious sort of state. If as a child you see your mother like that, then in your mind you might say, well look, I'm a child, she's an adult, she's frightened of those things, they must be scary, they must be dangerous. And so you can learn a phobia like that. But most of the phobias that people present with are learnt in an instant, one-stop learning if you like. And the way I explain it to people is there's a part of your brain that runs your fight and flight response. So if something scares you, you immediately sort of store that knowledge away. And we know as a child, you don't have to touch something that's hot once, you don't have to do it 5 times to realise that actually hurt. The moment that you touch the object and you feel the pain, it's as if that part of your brain takes a snapshot of that object, and then for the rest of your life it scans the environment for anything that looks like that so it doesn't hurt you again. And maybe this is an explanation of why people have what we would consider to be strange phobias. Button phobias, feather phobias, balloon phobias. You know, things that you, as an adult, would know, a button can't hurt me, a feather can't hurt me, a balloon can't hurt me. But even though you understand that consciously, you can still be terrified of those objects. In fact, I had a client once, he was a rugby player. Now, this man would take on 6 people on the rugby pitch fearlessly, but he would not go into a room with a balloon. And as strange as that may seem, even to himself, that might as well have been a Bengal tiger in that room. He would sweat, he would shake, just the thought of going into that room. Now, this might seem like a strange thing to develop, but let's imagine that when he was 18 months old, he's at a party, he's sitting in his pushchair, someone comes past and pops a balloon in his face. The moment that loud noise goes off, that part of his brain that would register that as a protective sort of mechanism for him would take a snapshot of that balloon, the smell of the rubber, the sound of the bang, and immediately lay that down as something to be frightened of. And even though as an adult, knowing that it doesn't hurt him, that process is still running in the background. So an example of this was, I had a man come to see me years ago now. He had a fear of driving on long straight roads. Now this is a man that had been driving for years, maybe 25 years before this fear developed. And there was no explanation of why he would suddenly have a fear about driving on long straight roads. But as it happened, it was early on in my career and I was working from my house. And at the time, we just got some kittens. They were very young, tiny little kittens. And as the man was sitting down, one of my little kittens walked through. And he said to me, "You've got some cats?" I said, "Yeah." And I explained to him that we're having this real problem with them at the moment because we had this Tom that would come in through the cat flap when we were out. It would chase my kittens all around the house. They would mess the house. The cat would then spray and then leave the house. So that when we return home, you could smell this cat throughout the house. And it was making our life hell for a while. And I explained this to this man and he said, "Oh, I had the same problem." He said, 2 or 3 years ago, he said, we had the same problem with our cats. We had this Tom that used to get into the house, it would spray everywhere, stink the house out and then leave. Eventually, the man said he actually got hold of this cat, this Tom. He said he wrapped it in a blanket, he put it in the back of his car and he said to his wife, "I'm just going to take it 30 miles away and let it go in the woods somewhere so it won't bother us anymore." He was telling me this story. He said, I was driving down this road. He said, and all of a sudden, the cat had got out the blanket. He said it jumped on the back of his neck. And it was one of those light bulb moments. because what had happened was he was looking at this long straight road. He felt the horrible feeling of an animal on the back of his neck. This part of his brain that's running this protective mechanism, if you like, fired off, but it took a snapshot of the road in front of him. He thought no more about it. He put the cat back in the blanket, he took it 30 miles away, dropped it off in the wood, went home, forgot about the incident altogether. But 2 weeks later, he's driving down a road which obviously reminded that part of his brain of the anxious feeling, that horrible feeling. He'd forgotten about the cat, but the anxiety he felt now linked to the road. That then spread to every long straight road, to the point, as I said, when he came to see me, he could only just drive around his village. But why that should have happened, why my kitten should have walked through at that point in time, even to this day, we will still not know how that fear developed. So it doesn't have to be the actual thing, the object that hurts you, that the fear gets linked to. This is an explanation I give to people who are suffering from ME. You know, they have this horrible feeling that when they get ill, they get anxious. They get very anxious and then their body's flooded with adrenaline. That can only last for a period of time. Once it dissipates, they feel tired. They feel tired and they start to feel ill and then they become anxious. So it's this vicious cycle. But for everyone I've seen and I've helped overcome ME, they at some point in their life have had a viral illness at the same time as having a traumatic experience. For a lot of people, it's when they're going for exams at university or college. Their senses are heightened because they're worried about doing this exam. They then have a viral illness. Those two things connect in their mind to the point where it becomes as if it's a phobia. I see this or I feel that and I have this reaction. So it's an explanation of how we develop a phobia. And the joy of it is that you don't have to live with a phobia. We now know that you can overcome a phobia very, very quickly. In some cases, in minutes. People that have had a lifelong phobia, running the right techniques with the right person, you can overcome and eliminate a phobia in a very, very short period of time. So if you are suffering with a phobia that's holding you back or stopping you from doing something, seek someone out who knows these techniques and they can help you.